I'm doing the intro, aren't I?
Oh, yeah. I guess we start with the intro and then we can have whatever fucking goofy ass conversation you want to have. So fine. Go ahead.
On today's episode, we discuss Ezra from 2023. I'm Mike. With me is Mike, no relation, and this is our hero De Niro, episode 2.
Just want to say, like, I'm so happy. I think it's like incredible that, and this is like, I don't know if listeners will believe it, but like this actually happened. We actually rolled the most recent movie after choosing to watch the oldest movie as our first episode. So it's like a very funny contrast in terms of like his, the way he comports himself and like the role he plays in the film, which obviously we'll get into. Like it's a smaller role, I think, than you see in a lot of his earlier work, which is the kind of thing he does now that he's like 86 years old. Really fun that this is what we ended up doing second.
It's like that Interstellar scene where Matthew McConaughey is watching Timothée Chalamet turn into Casey Affleck over the course of like 3 decades. That's just what we saw with Robert De Niro going from Greetings all the way to Ezra. And, before we get into that, I thought at the top it could be good to get to know us a little bit. And first of all, I just want to say apologies for my audio quality in the first episode. We've introduced safeguards to ensure that doesn't happen again. But, we have 100+ chances here to really, really get it right. So I think by the end of this experiment, this podcast, hopefully my intention is to have created the greatest podcast of all time, and I think we can do that with all these chances that we have.
I'm confident. We have a lot of chances. I agree.
Yeah. So I figure I'll ask you at the top before we even get into the opening here and what I have in store for us. What do you see the appeal of this podcast being as we go forward? What do you kind of think the appeal of it is or should be or could be?
This discussion was teed up by an argument that Mike and I were having before we're breaking the veil.
We're
breaking. Yep. A little bit of a peek behind the curtain here. How the sausage gets made. So my view is that the point of this podcast is to talk about film. Something that we're both passionate about. Talk about Robert De Niro, somebody who we're both passionate about. And if it's funny, if we're charismatic, if it's entertaining, I see that as kind of incidental, to the, the essence of the podcast, which is, being about film and about Robert De Niro. What do you think, Mike? What do you think the point of the podcast is?
Yeah, I just have to disagree here. I think the comedy is the point. For me, the action is the juice. And why would someone choose to listen to this podcast if not for the entertainment value instead of just like reading the Wikipedia page for these films? Like, what is it? Just because of our passion?
I think you have to hope that we will, grow into the role, that we'll learn to offer, some valuable insight, beyond what a Wikipedia article, aside from the reception section, which shares, some interpretation that critics have had of the film, that we can offer some insight and value above an encyclopedia entry. Call it each episode is a beefed up letterboxed review from 2 different perspectives. Like that is, I don't know that I would listen to a comedy movie podcast if the comedy was the point. I'd like it to be funny.
Well, it needs to be. But doesn't it need to be entertaining? This isn't PBS.
I like PBS.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I have two things from my perspective. So one, when we were having this argument before we started the record, I just thought we're wasting good pod right here. And second, when I was watching Ezra, which I don't want to talk about just yet, but I will just say when I was watching it, I thought to myself as I was taking notes,
where am I going to find the comedy in this? Just due to its subject matter, but we'll save that for a few minutes down the road. I think loyal viewers should chime in with their opinion. Let us know what you think.
I agree.
At ourherodeniro@gmail.com. Send us an email and we'll be sure to take your feedback seriously. But maybe it's those two differing perspectives, coming together that will, form some sort of entertainment in itself. We'll see. Before we get into Ezra, I thought it'd be great to get to know each of us through the lens of an online quiz. Which Robert De Niro character are you? And I actually did try. I didn't try, but I checked out a couple. I think this is the second highest result on Google. This is on brainfall.com, and we'll be sure to link it in the episode notes. So, Mike, you scrolled down on this page. I hadn't. Please explain what you saw here that made you laugh.
So the first thing, I haven't scrolled down past this because I realized that it would have been funny to have this visceral reaction while recording. But I love the shitty AI art picture right at the top. There's so much that's bad about it. I really like how the bottles are kind of blending into each other. Like if you look, like there's the one in the background that's both a candle and a bottle. Like the model wasn't really sure what it was supposed to be drawing.
Doesn't make a lot of sense.
And then there's there's like the wine bottle and the whiskey bottle that are sort of like melding together. I also really love the fucked up fingers, but I think my favorite part is the cigarette he's smoking and how it kind of looks like the filter is at the end of the cigarette, but also it's not in his mouth. And also the smoke is like nowhere near where it would be emanating from. He's
kind of holding it like underneath his lips. That's not going to work. That's
really
not
good.
A good way to do that. What made me laugh when I looked at the page was that it said at the top, it says by Brainfall staff and then says updated April 1st, 2024. Like they're updating this quiz? Really?
Sure. I mean, maybe they added Stan from Ezra.
He
had a new movie come out last year. Maybe they added that. Maybe that's one we could get.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's go ahead. Let's click start. And,
all right.
I will go ahead. I'll read the questions and the options. I will just talk through what we're picking. So question number 1 of 10. Jesus Christ. The question is, you talking to us? You talking to us? And the options are, yeah, that's right. I'm talking to you. No, I'm not. And, huh? So I guess if some guy comes up to you and says that, how would you respond?
I mean,
what do you think?
I think in the context of, thinking about like where we are here, like, I think I'd say, huh? Because like, obviously, I'm here taking this quiz. So this is kind of a crazy way to react to me starting to take this quiz. So I think I'm going to pick, huh? What would you say in this situation?
This is really tough. I feel like it's so context sensitive because there are situations in which I feel like I would push back and say, yeah, I am talking to you, like angrily, like I would be just as upset as this random weird guy who's asking me these questions. So
he looks like he's got a tummy ache.
Oh yeah, he does not look like a happy camper. So I think. But there are a lot of situations, especially if I'm just like going about my business, throughout the day, where even if I was like talking to them and didn't want to engage, I would just say, no, I'm not. Like I would just I try to offload that as quickly as possible. Like I have no interest in talking to this guy. So I think I'm going to say, no, I'm not. And let's
all right.
go.
I'm clicking next.
Lock it in. Next question. What kind of De Niro? What?
Well, I think we should alternate. Who's going to talk about that?
I said I was going to run through the quiz.
Fine, go ahead. Then you run through the quiz.
You're doing the synopsis. Right? I don't know. I think it's just easier.
All right.
Why don't you listen to me? Anyways, question number 2 out of 10. There's no artwork for this one. It's just what kind of De Niro roles are your favorite? So the 3 options are the crazy ones, the gangster ones, and the comedic ones. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really like comedy that much. And the crazy ones, they kind of make me uncomfortable, to be honest.
Really?
So I think, I don't know. I mean, I like them, obviously. I mean, I like them better than the comedic ones. But I think I'd have to go with the gangster ones in this one.
Would you have described John, the character that he played in Greetings, as crazy or comedic or both.
Comedic.
Yeah.
I thought he was actually pretty level, like all things considered.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I think the crazy ones, right. Well, we'll talk about this, but I feel like the characters in Goodfellas are like crazy characters. Like, that's what I think of when I think about that.
Yeah. Okay. And I actually think I think I'm going to pick the same as you here because listen, we haven't seen that many De Niro films. That's like why we're doing this in part. But I feel like, I don't know, his gangster roles are just they're so iconic. They made him into the megastar that he is, and how could you possibly like pass up a Robert De Niro gangster performance? So yeah, I agree. I gotta go.
I'm clicking next.
Locking it in.
The other thing too is, just really quick before I click next, like, I feel like what's missing here is like what's actually my favorite kind of Robert De Niro role. And I think that, and just to preview this a little bit, I actually really loved his performance in Ezra, even though in general I didn't think it was a very good movie. And I think that in Ezra he played a similar character, in spite of how counterintuitive this might seem, to the one that he plays in Heat. And that character type is just like the very cool, smooth operator. Like, he's kind of like, he's above it all, he's really wise and seasoned, by a hard life, like no nonsense. Like, that's actually my favorite, kind of Robert De Niro role. And so I'm kind of bummed that that's missing from this list.
That's true. This doesn't seem to be the highest quality quiz, because I agree. One of my favorite performances that I have seen him in was in Ronin, and he plays that same sort of just
true.
Such
exactly.
a great, like, competent professional character.
Yeah.
But we're doing the best with what we have. So next up, question 3. Do you know a second language? The options are sure do, I know a little but I'm not fluent, and nope or nope.
I'm going to give myself a nope on this one. Do I know a few words of a few other languages? Like, yeah, but I think it would be generous to even describe it as a little, to be honest.
Yeah, listen, I would say that I know a little Spanish, but I'm definitely not fluent, so I'm going right in the middle there.
Sounds good.
I'm curious.
All right, let's next it up.
De Niro films where he's bilingual.
Yep.
Okay, question 4. Pick a Martin Scorsese film. Our options are The Departed, Shutter Island, Gangs of New York, The Wolf of Wall Street, and Hugo.
I just laughed thinking about how funny it would be to pick Hugo.
I never saw Hugo. I wanted to when it came out, and I never did.
I think this is like a really strange selection of Martin Scorsese films.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what it's supposed to.
Considering how many he's in. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. Which one of these would I pick? Like, I don't really love any of these, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, I really want to rewatch The Departed, because I did not love The Departed when I first saw it, like probably 15 or 20 years ago. But last year I watched, what's the Hong Kong film that it's based on?
Infernal Affairs.
Yes, Infernal Affairs. I watched that for the first time, and I thought that was incredible. And so I understand that The Departed is a relatively faithful adaptation of that film. And so I wonder if, like, I just saw The Departed when I was too young and I didn't really appreciate it at the time. So I don't know. These aren't my favorite Scorsese films. I've seen them all except for Gangs of New York. I think if I had to pick my favorite, I'd probably pick Shutter Island of these 5.
Wow. Okay. Shutter Island. Yeah. I like Shutter Island, but I'm going to go with The Departed. I love The Departed. I haven't watched it many times. I think the most recent time was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, but I really enjoyed it. I had a blast with it. So I'm going The Departed. I'm not going to go with Hugo.
All right.
Next question.
I'm changing to Hugo, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay. There you go.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I picked Shutter Island. Yep.
Which of these really gets to you? Your options are losing money, being lied to, or seeing people hurt.
I think I'd have to go with being lied to. I don't like being lied to.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the same because it's personal, It's personal against me.
I agree.
So, I obviously they're all bad. I don't want to lose money or anything like that. But, I got to go with being lied to. That was an easy one. Let's keep going. Question 6. What's the thing about De Niro that you admire most? Your options are his dedication to his roles, his looks, his versatility as an actor, or his tremendous body of work. Wow.
I don't know. What do you think? I don't think I should go first on every single one. What's your first reaction?
This is so tough because I mean, part of why we're doing this is because we know he has so many bad films that he's been in. So you say like his tremendous body of work or his dedication to his roles. Is he really dedicated to roles like in Killer Elite or The War with Grandpa? Like, I
don't know. Maybe
I don't know.
No, because what I've read, the thoughts that I've read by people who are like big Robert De Niro fans who've seen a lot of those movies is that even in his terrible movies, he's really good. So I don't know. Yeah. Like maybe that does evidence some dedication, like the fact that he like usually leaves, maybe not all of it, but like most of it on the field, even when it's like little fuckers.
Yeah, he seems to be one of those actors who's just like operating at a high level, like a Denzel or something, like, Gladiator 2, even when Denzel is just being Denzel, it's just like, oh, he's great. Love watching.
He's so good. Yep, I agree. That movie was not very good, but Denzel is incredible.
No, I agree. Film. So I think I'm going to go with his dedication to his roles.
I'm going to go with his versatility as an actor.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the one that my heart feels.
I think there are no wrong answers for that one.
That's so true. Yep.
All right, question 7. Right. We're playing cops and robbers. Which team do you want to be on? Oh, and your options are hands up, it's the police, gimme the loot, or this game is for kids.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd be the police.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a rule follower. Relative to actual bad things, I don't think I would ever like do a robbery. I speed,
Yeah,
but I don't think I'd ever rob somebody or like commit violence against a person.
I mean, listen, I wouldn't either, but if you're playing cops and robbers, so my thoughts here are, on the one hand, if you're the police, you get uniforms, you get APCs, you get all the militarized vehicles and armaments nowadays, and I feel like that would be a pretty cool side to be on. But on the other hand, I think it's just way cooler to be like the bank robber, freaking Robert De Niro in Heat, Neil McCauley. Like I'd rather pretend to be him, a life that I would never ever actually live, than the police, which I could like reasonably join and make a life out of. Like, it's not that far fetched to make a career change.
That's fair.
Join the force. So I'm going to go with robbers, but you're going with cops.
I'm going with cops.
Such divergent results. All right, question 8.
Yep.
Who would you rather spend an evening with? Our options are Sharon Stone, Al Pacino, Ben Stiller, Jodie Foster, or Kevin Costner.
I don't know. Who you feeling on this one?
So for me, this was an easy one for me. I got to go Al Pacino. I want to hear the stories, and I feel like he's just so entertaining now in his older age that it would just be such a blast to just like grab dinner with him and just like tee him up to just like tell stories about all of his roles. Tell me about Jack. He's
got a great ass.
Dunkachino. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Going Al Pacino as well.
Yep. Yeah, no disrespect to anyone else. Question 9. When you're getting dressed, you'll probably pick clothes that are, and the options are stylish, unique, functional, or comfortable.
Oh, this is so hard. I think it and I know this is true for you as well. I think it so depends on the day.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't know. I don't know. What are you going to pick for this one?
It is tough. I feel like post COVID, I've become less interested in like uncomfortable, like more stylish clothes. I think I might have to go comfort. Now that I'm in grad school, so I'm in class, I'm in field work. It's a pretty casual dress code. Obviously, I'm still wearing things that I think hopefully look nice or fitted well. But I can throw on a pullover or a crew neck sweatshirt or whatever and be able to work in that and like, oh, it's a revelation. I don't really want to like dress up just for the hell of it as much as I used to. So I'm going to, but does that make me sound like a slob? I don't know. I'm going to go, what's the difference between comfortable and functional?
I think functional is probably more like cargo pants.
Oh yeah. Okay. Lots of pockets. No, I'm going to go comfortable in this case.
And I don't know, I guess if I'm like leaving the house, I probably would go stylish or unique, but I don't leave the house most days.
Yeah. You're real hard.
So I guess I'm probably going to go comfortable as well. I think I got to be honest. You
need to be true to yourself as someone who owns an Adidas tracksuit.
Yep, exactly. All right, next, final question.
Final question. Time for a change of scenery. Which of these places would you rather live or vacation? And the options are Los Angeles, Las Vegas, New York City, Chicago, and Italy.
There's literally only one good option on this list.
Yeah? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's Italy.
Yeah, I agree. It's really weird that they would say live or vacation. I feel like those are really different, like, considerations. Obviously, I want a vacation in Italy.
Yeah. I think it's also so odd that, like, they've just chosen, like, I mean, I think under the assumption that, like, a lot or most of the people who take this quiz would be American, like, they've chosen 4 places that would just be, like, totally normal and, like, you know, relatively, like, comparatively accessible places to do, like, a weekend trip. If you lived in the United States, like, probably one of those cities is, like, pretty accessible to you. And then, like, the other side of the planet, like, yeah, I don't know. Which one am I going to pick? I think it's going to be Italy.
Yeah, am I going to pick the very exotic European country or like a city that I visited like 5 times?
Right, and I've been to all of these cities like more than once, except for LA. So
yeah, like I don't know. I could probably be pretty happy living in New York City, but I'm definitely picking Italy for this quiz. Okay.
All right, so we're gonna hit submit here. I haven't clicked it yet.
Okay, let's click it. Let's do it.
Here we go.
All right.
Calculating result.
That's great. It has to count.
Oh my God, you have to make an account?
No.
That's so funny.
There's a skip button. There's a skip button.
Oh, skip. There it is. Okay, great. That would be so funny if we had to
I had the same response.
All right, it's cleaning up, analyzing responses.
Okay. All right. Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
I'm happy to go first.
Okay, let's hear it.
So I got Jack Burns from Meet the Parents.
Oh,
Your no-nonsense attitude can be pretty intimidating at times, but underneath it all, you're a loving person with a good heart. You know, I think that's actually semi-accurate.
All right, semi-accurate.
It's not like super accurate, but I think it's like at least a 6 out of 10. Like that's pretty good for like a brain dead internet quiz.
This is a bad.
All right, what did you get? Yep.
All right. Yep. So you got the Meet the Parents guy. That's exciting.
Yep.
Mr. Fokker himself. So I got Neil McCauley from Heat. Very excited about that. I know, right?
That
so
is incredible.
The blurb is, you're intelligent and clever, able to craft brilliant plans that put you ahead of everyone else, but you don't always use your cunning for the best purposes. I have to say that's also, that is not inaccurate. So I think this is actually not as bad of a quiz as I thought it was when I teed it up for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really happy I'm really happy we did this. So I am going to screenshot this, just in case you'd like to have it for some reason. I'll send it to you in our DM. Maybe you can screenshot yours as well. Yeah. I don't know if we're ever going to publish any supplemental materials for this podcast.
I don't know if we're going to make like a whole wiki or whatever for this project.
Yeah, but here you go. There it is.
Thanks. I'll be sure to look at that later.
That was great. I love that. I'm really happy that we did that. Great idea.
I feel like they're kind of like our spirit animals now, carrying us through the next 100 episodes of this project. That's great. Yep. Yeah, I'm glad we did this. Now everyone knows a little bit more about us, and I think we can move into our discussion of today's film, Ezra from 2023.
All right. So I'm going to do the synopsis this time, and as I told you when we were texting earlier today, I really didn't take any notes on this movie. So I'm gonna try to do it from memory, and I'm pretty confident in my ability to do it because narratively, structurally, this is a much more conventional story.
I was going to ask when you told me, and you were like, "Oh, I didn't really take notes." I wanted to ask why, but I figured I'd wait for the pod again because I'm a professional.
I have a lot to say about this movie. I don't think there was really any need to take notes because cinematographically, from a literary perspective, I think there's relatively little to say. I think it was pretty dull and didn't have much of any value to say about the world. And narratively, I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward story, right? So here's what it's about. So you got Max. He is a struggling stand-up comedian, and he's. It seems like at the beginning, like they are divorced, but it's revealed later in the film, just in a throwaway line, that they are in the process of getting divorced. They're separated. His wife, played by Rose Byrne. You remember what her name was?
Is like Anne or Jenny or Jane or something like
Jen, like Jane. Like it doesn't matter.
It was a Jane
Rose
name.
Byrne.
I kept writing Rose Byrne in my notes.
Yep. You got Rose Byrne. Together they have a son. His name's Ezra, the titular character. And he has autism. It seems like, probably like a relatively medium case of autism spectrum disorder, I think, but certainly the kind that I think would be really challenging for parents. Although obviously there are children with autism spectrum disorder who are have a lot more challenges than Ezra does. And so Max has a dad. His name's Stan. We'll talk about him. He's the one who's played by Robert De Niro. And Rose is in a relationship with a guy. They seem like they're pretty serious. He's a lawyer. His name is Bruce, something like
Bryce.
that. It's hard to remember exactly what his name is.
Yeah,
because
that's why we take
a running
notes.
Gag. Yeah, no, not important, because a running gag in the movie is that Max consistently gets his name wrong. I think it was Bruce. I think Bryce is what he.
That's right. He said it as a gag. Yeah.
Wrongly calls him when he first refers to him. So the movie starts, and Max has Ezra at his show at a nightclub, and when he returns him to the house, it's clear that Rose Byrne does not like that Max had him at the show.
Yeah, I have some things to say here. Just
Go
because
ahead.
I
Yep.
took diligent notes, and I
Great.
had thoughts throughout this whole fucking movie. So first of all, we are introduced to Max doing stand up, like you said, at a club, and to be clear, it's not his show. It's like an open mic. It seems like.
True, fair. That's important. Yep.
Yeah, I think we're meant to understand that he's not particularly successful as a stand up, which I didn't.
And importantly, maybe you're going to add this. He isn't funny. Like, none of his jokes are funny.
Yeah, so the thing about his stand-up is, I noted this, I'm a big fan of stand-up comedy, and he does the sort of stand-up that I hate. What he's really doing is he's doing exposition as stand-up comedy, and he's just kind of like telling the crowd about his life, but like not in a fun way, not in a funny way. You know,
agreed.
He's just like it
Striking.
just seems right. It's just like, dude, like no wonder you're like not that popular. This is not funny. And I was just like, oh god, are we gonna get like a lot of this in the film? So I was a little
unfortunately
worried about that.
we really did, or at least it felt like it, like, because it's not funny.
So then he returns Max to Rose Byrne, and
Yep.
I guess the house used to be theirs. She's like a real estate agent. He's a stand-up comic who never seems to have broken through. And I was just thinking, like, how did they afford this like nice?
No. He used to be a comedy writer. Like it seems like he used to draw a salary. Remember, and then he got blacklisted by Conan for punching him in the balls.
Oh, that's right. He punched Conan in the balls. Okay.
But he was trying to punch him in the stomach. He's very tall. So this is the kind of stuff that the power of my memory retains, in spite of my not having taken notes.
That's why I have to take notes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So where are we? He returns.
Right. So he returns the kid. And it's just clear that she's not comfortable, with the way that, that Max is, including, Ezra in this part of his life. I think it's important here to talk about what some of Ezra's issues are. So it seems like he has, some relatively severe, sensory issues. He doesn't like to be touched. That's shown, pretty explicitly early in the film. The parents aren't allowed to hug him. He doesn't like to be hugged. And it seems fairly explicitly that there are two ways that they're allowed to touch him. So the most common way that he and his parents exchange affection is by kind of like lightly tugging on and like maybe rubbing each other's earlobes.
Yeah.
And really then Rose Byrne has something she does with him that she calls the sensory brush thing, I think she calls it, which we never see until later in the film. Later in the film, we do see Max doing it with him in the car when they're in the woods. We'll talk about that later. But it just seems like brushing his hair. Like that's the sensory brush thing. And I don't know much about autism spectrum disorder, so maybe that's a like term of art. Like that's like sensory brush is like something you do with autistic kids. I don't know. I didn't Google it. So he returns him to the house, and I think a bunch of shit happens that like really doesn't matter to the narrative. In this part, you meet Stan, his father, Stan is played by Robert De Niro. I think this is a funny time to acknowledge, because we sort of teased at this at the end of the last episode, that Robert De Niro is in the film for 9 minutes of the 100-minute runtime, which is extremely funny. Very funny movie for us to have seen second for this for this podcast. And let me just say, I mean, I said this earlier. I thought Robert De Niro was great in this movie, and I thought that he played the role well enough. And I think his character was important enough, and he rose enough to the, to the quality of the script, which was relatively low, and to the quality of the narrative, that it actually felt to me like he was in it for much more than 9 minutes. Did it feel that way to you?
Yes. So a couple things here. I just want to first shout out to De Niro Nation, let them know that it's De Niro's first on screen at 4 minutes and 34 seconds in the film. I'm tracking that in my notes. I feel like that's just going to be a recurring thing.
That's good. Yeah, that's good.
But I agree with you. I think he's used sparingly, but they pepper him throughout the film, and I think that was really nice. I was worried that he was just going to be like in the beginning of the film. Like once you understand that it's going to be like once you see what happens later in the film, I was like, oh, they might just only have him in the first act, and then we won't see him again. But he continues to show up, which is really nice. I also want to note that during all this crap that's happening that isn't very important, we also note that we see that Max has not gotten over Rose Byrne yet. That's right. He hooks up with a woman at the comedy club and then cries afterwards, and then she leaves the house in a hurry while Robert De Niro is coming in after work, and there's a little awkward meeting there. But please continue.
Yeah, no, that's a great call out. I agree. Another thing, Mike, just to share, I don't know what your experience was of having not known before you watched the movie that he was only in it for 9 minutes, but knowing that actually elevated the experience for me quite a bit, because knowing that going in, my expectations of Robert De Niro's role in the movie were so low that I think I ended up being like a lot happier about it than I would have been if I hadn't gone in with such low expectations. So I think I benefited actually from knowing that it was only going to be 9 minutes of screen time.
I was able to.
So a bunch of other shit happens.
Yeah.
Yep. Bunch of other shit happens. Like you said, I think that is an important character beat that I might not have remembered to mention. Him sleeping with that lady and then crying at the end of the bed. And then there's something is contrived such that he takes Ezra again and returns him again. And after Ezra goes to bed, Rose Byrne has had an argument with. Oh, I need to say more. Sorry about his the way his autism spectrum disorder manifests. So there's that, right? His sensory issues are a big part of it. But another part of it is that he seems to struggle with artifice, and with kind of indirect, literally. Subtle communication. Yeah. Right. He's a very literal communicator, very direct. And
doesn't lie. He's like a Vulcan.
Yeah. And so I this is something we're going to talk about this a little bit. Something that I don't like is the way that films depict people with autism, especially autistic kids. And I can tell that this film was trying and I think in some ways succeeds at being a little bit more sensitive about the way it depicts the the experience of being on the spectrum. But I feel like his literalism and his direct communication is played for laughs in a way that's like kind of ham-fisted and stupid, and I didn't really like it. We're going to talk more about all this stuff later. Man. I have a lot to say about the autism of the whole thing. Like that's really most of what there is to say about this film.
You're also Max took Ezra out for Halloween. They did some sort of costume show.
That's what it was. Yes. Yeah.
And I mentioned when I was taking notes, we see Rose Byrne putting Ezra in his costume at first, and at first I thought he was like dressing in drag, and I was like, oh, where are we going with this? And then later you see Max.
That's right, he's the dude.
He's he's Jesus or Jesus or whatever his freaking name is. Yeah, so Ezra was the dude, which was fun. And then they go to the club, and Max brings him back way later than planned. Which, I mean, I don't know, probably shouldn't do that, but let's go on. Let's continue.
Sure. Yep. So after that happens, Rose Byrne is frustrated with Max, and so
understandably
she is having So she's having a discussion. Oh yeah, it's like, let's just say it right now. Like Max is like a terrible father. You know, it's like I think that the schism between the way like a normal, responsible person, I think watching this interprets the conduct of the characters on screen and like the way the structure and framing and cinematography and like everything about the movie implies the creative folks want you to feel about it is like insane. Like there's so much to say. Like I'm really excited to get into that later. But like Max is he is a father of I think questionable quality and character. Yes. So Rose Byrne is pissed at him, to your point, justifiably, and so she's downstairs. She's venting a little bit to her boyfriend, who is an attorney. That's I think at least nominally relevant to the plot.
Yeah.
And he makes an offhand joke, to us, as people who are, neurotypical, something that was obviously a joke. He makes a comment about like, killing Max or like having a hit put out on him or something like that. And from upstairs in his bedroom, or maybe he comes out to the hall or something like that. But somehow Ezra is able to eavesdrop and overhear the conversation. And because of his direct communication style and the way that he communicates literally, he takes it literally and he thinks that his father is in some kind of danger and he panics. And so he runs out of the house. He's scared of dogs. And so he runs out of the house and it runs into a dog relatively immediately after running out. It's nighttime. It's like after midnight. He's scared. And so the confrontation of with the dog makes him turn and run away from the dog, which takes him into the street. And he's almost hit by a cab.
And so almost immediately. Yep. He was out in the wild for like 10 seconds. 5 seconds.
Yeah. Like, it's really funny. It's really funny. I wasn't thinking about that. So then the next scene is, he's in the hospital and the parents are there and the police and presumably Child Protective Services, CPS has gotten involved and, they're concerned. The authorities are concerned that, he's got these issues that he has and it doesn't really make sense that he's done this. And so it seems that what they're concerned about is that maybe he's going, trying to harm himself. And I'm realizing as I described this that there's other context that we need to share. So earlier in the film,
I was gonna say it, but yeah, go on.
Earlier in the film, Ezra is expelled. This happened very recently. It was like 2 scenes
threatening
prior.
to expel.
I don't know if he was expelled or if they're threatening to expel. I think he was expelled. He's expelled from his school that he's in. It's the third school that he's been expelled from. And in the process of this expulsion, the school administrator, psychologists, whomever, have recommended that he be put into a school for kids with special needs, and that he be put on an antipsychotic medication. And Max is not having this. Right. He doesn't think that he should be in a school with other kids who have special needs. He thinks that he should be in a school with just the general population. And he doesn't want him to be medicated. And so,
and again, it seems like every suggestion and recommendation, like everything that is happening seems totally reasonable from like what we have seen so far. Like Max, he's so pissed about these like suggestions or whatever, but like, I don't know why. I think the action that led Max or Ezra to being expelled was something like he like led a classroom of kids like outside into the road or something like that. Or they just like, it's just like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how you could handle that in a school. You need to like be concerned about everyone's safety, their kids. Like, how old is Ezra?
Yeah. I'm guessing he's probably supposed to be about 10.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, to your point, right? Like I'm making a connection now that I don't think I realized while I was watching. But like you're correct. It was that he led the kids into traffic. And so like understandably, the folks at the hospital and CPS folks and whomever, they see this as part of a pattern, right? Like, oh, he's running into traffic again. Like clearly he's like trying to hurt himself. And so now this is enforced. He is a ward of the state. The state is releasing him to the custody of his parents. But as the wardens of the child, they are dictating that the conditions of his release to his parents are that he will attend a school for kids with special needs and he will be prescribed the antipsychotic medication.
Yeah, they're going to try it for a while.
Right. Yep. And so Max is really pissed. And you know, to Max's credit in this scene, like the doctor is kind of an asshole.
Oh yeah.
You know, the doctor makes some pithy comment to him about like, I see where Ezra gets his aggression or something.
It's a crazy thing to say.
A totally fucking nutso thing for a doctor to say to like.
I know your kid just ran into traffic, but
right. A reasonably like really tightly wound up like concerned parent in like probably one of the most difficult like, you know, like days of his life. Like totally nuts to like not de-escalate that situation, but instead to like further escalate by making that like shitty comment. Like, so like credit to Max, like he's not totally unjustified and like bursting a little bit here, I think, considering what he's going through. So the doctor makes this comment, and so Max reacts. We don't see this depicted on the screen, but he comes after him, and you know Bruce or Bryce or whomever tries to hold him back. But it's revealed later that he did successfully punch the doctor in the face. And so the results of that are that now Max has a 3-month restraining order from Ezra.
Yep. Which
Bruce, whatever, the lawyer boyfriend thinks that he can get reduced to a month. You have anything you want to say about this?
No, just that De Niro picks him up in his 71 Eldorado convertible. Yep.
So De Niro picks him up, and you know a bunch of shit happens that I don't think really matters. But eventually, you know, Max is so fed up with what's happening that he decides to kidnap Ezra from Rose Byrne's house in the middle of the night.
Hold on. You are glossing over, I think, one of the most like interesting, weird moments in this fucking film, which is when De Niro picks Max up from jail or whatever, and they're driving down the street in freaking Hoboken or wherever they live, and they get into an argument. And De Niro, who's driving the car, he stops the car in the middle of the street in the middle of the day and just leaves the car and just continues walking up the street.
I forgot about this.
How could you? This is like the weirdest moment in the film. And like Max like yells, you know, come back, whatever, you know, tries to get him to come back. And De Niro just keeps walking. Like he just abandoned his car in the middle of the street. Like what was going on there? I guess it's because the subject matter was so heated, but like, I don't know. I was like, this is not a thing that people do, you know, like I'm sure it seemed like very dramatic in the script or whatever, but like, it was just so stupid to me. It stood out.
That's fair. Yep.
Yes.
I don't know. It might be a thing people do though. I have no idea. Like in such a heated moment.
Have you ever abandoned your car? Have you ever just walked away from it?
But you know, I'm not like totally, but I think a relatively, you know, compared to these people, you know, chill, rational human being. You know, like Max is like a total fucking dumbass.
True.
And, you know, I think
have to deal with him all the time.
Robert De Niro's character is like, you know, 80 years old or whatever. So he's like pretty chill, like all old men are. But I think you get the impression throughout the movie based on the characterization and the narrative and the way he talks about himself and his and Max's past that he's also kind of a piece of shit, you know? So like, I don't know if these are like the most normal people to be like, to be comparing your like modal expectation for human behavior against. Like I didn't actually think this was that weird. Like I think there's way weirder stuff.
You didn't even remember it.
It really didn't make an impression on me, honestly. Like,
well, and the other thing I wanted to note too, because again, one of us took chronological notes here, was that before Max steals Ezra and commits a felony, he does another stand-up bit back at the club. And oh man, I literally wrote, I'm not laughing. And it's like a trauma dumping kind of like thing that's so in vogue nowadays. He does this bit about musical chairs, and then he just like very like morosely, upsetly, just like tells the crowd that they knocked a doctor out for pushing drugs on his kid. And I just wrote, this isn't going well. This is a very bad set. And like, I don't know. It's like, I get it.
This isn't going well.
This isn't going well. This is not a good set. And it really made me wonder, like, could I do better? Could I go up and do like a tight 5? Could I like compose a set? I think it would do a lot better than that. I think I could get some laughs. Yeah, at least some chuckles. But anyways, yeah, he steals his kid out of Rose Byrne's house.
I want to add something about that, and this will come back later, but I really want to make sure that we draw this connection. The amazing thing about that, and like this is a much more like I think mind-blowing thing that happens in the movie that makes no fucking sense than like the leaving the car thing. Like this is the set that, having been filmed, gets him booked on Kimmel. We'll talk about that more later.
Really,
but it's like he does a lot of stand up in the movie, and it's all bad. But like that's by far the worst stand up. Like it's like most of it isn't even a joke. But then the one part he does that is a joke is just like, hey, you guys remember musical chairs? And it's like, what?
Yeah, it was like it wasn't even like hacky. It was
the
just
least
like
funny
so
thing I've
bizarre.
ever heard.
Yeah, Jesus. Yeah, he's not. Nothing about like what he's doing suggests that he's very funny.
It's really good stuff. So he kidnaps the kid.
Yes.
And he takes him away. And that's what happens. So in the morning, Rose Byrne wakes up, and she finds that Ezra's not in his room and the window is open. So she panics and she calls Max, and he's like, yeah, I took him and there's nothing you could do about it. And so she's freaking out, but she doesn't call the police.
Right. Her boyfriend suggests that she call the police, which again, reasonable suggestion.
Yeah, I'm kind of two minds on this, right? So here's some important context. Okay. It's something we have not mentioned explicitly. In the context of kind of our autobiography so far in the podcast. So I have a kid, okay, and Mike does not.
True.
So I think I have a slightly different attitude about this than I did before I had a child. So I think that now that I have a child, so I don't know that I necessarily think this is like objectively correct. But I think that now that I have a child, it is easier for me to understand the parental instinct to not jump to involving a third party in like a dispute that parents are having about the child. And so I don't think it's like a good decision that she's making necessarily, but I think that now this makes more sense to me than maybe it would have made if I'd watched it a few years ago before I had a kid.
Okay.
So she makes that decision, ill-informed as it may be. And then like a bunch of shit happens that like, again, my senses doesn't really matter. Does anything happen that matters before she does call the police? Do you have anything in your notes that we should talk about? Yeah.
So very shortly after the last point that we discussed in the movie, I wrote, Max calls De Niro, and De Niro just ignores his phone. He wants no part of any of this. And I totally get it. And then they just keep, because Max took the El Dorado. He took Robert De Niro's car to abduct Ezra. And so they're just driving across country to Nebraska and to visit a friend. And I wrote, they drive some more. And then underneath that, I wrote, I wonder when they're going to put an Amber Alert out on him. Because he's like literally like taken the child across state lines, like obviously very illegal. And then Whoopi Goldberg, who plays Max's agent, calls Max. And this is where she tells him that Kimmel wants this. Okay, this is really nutso. I can't believe you fucking skipped all this shit, man. You got to take notes. She says, Kimmel wants to book you, but won't pay for your flight. And I wrote LOL. So like this was the point. I was like, okay, they're name dropping Kimmel, so obviously he like signed off on this and is in the film in some capacity. But like that just makes him, I don't know if that's like industry standard, but that makes him sound so cheap. Like you can't can't pay to fly a guy from New York to LA. Like, I don't know, is that really like an expensive flight for like this freaking show that you run? And I wrote, it makes Kimmel sound like a cheap bastard. So like, I guess by pure coincidence, Max has to drive to LA, which he's already kind of doing with his abducted son. And then they go into a hotel room and, we learn more about Ezra's, issues. One, he can't eat bananas. It's like a texture thing. He gives himself a bath in the hotel room and nearly boils himself. He has the heat turned all the way up. He doesn't feel hot. Rose tries calling.
That's right. If it's steaming, it's hot. Yeah.
Yeah. Rose, it's an emotional father-son moment. Rose tries calling De Niro and he's not interested either. He wants no part of any of it. There's so much that happens before we have the whole Rainn Wilson thing before she finally talks to someone.
Well, hold on. I think I was misremembering the chronology. I agree the Rainn Wilson stuff is important. Does that happen before she talks to the police?
It happens before. So
Okay.
Rose tries calling De Niro, and he's not interested. And then we have another driving montage set to indie folk music that I just like. My brain completely shut down.
Oh, but that one was golden by My Morning Jacket, and that's one of my favorite songs. So
there you go. Okay. 5
really
out
like
of 5,
that, yeah.
says Mike the Fab. Okay.
5 out of 5 needle drop. Like, 5 out of 5 needle drop. way less than 5 out of 5 film. Like, it didn't move the needle on that one.
And then they arrive at Rainn Wilson's house / farm, whatever it is. Nick.
I think
is
it's a
his
camp,
character.
actually.
Camp. Oh, yeah. I was unclear of what it actually was. He just has
it's like a
camp in the woods.
Yeah.
But it's a camp in the woods that only he seems to be at. Him and this like Senegalese nun that works for him. So I don't know what the point.
I don't think she works for him, man. I think she's like his girlfriend / buck buddy.
No, man. They literally he said, as long as I employ her, then the church covers half of my expenses.
Oh, I missed that line.
Yeah, man. And we get another one of Ezra's issues where they're trying to eat this little rustic dinner together in the cabin, and Ezra, he's handed a metal fork and he can't eat with metal. He needs plastic utensils. Metal hurts his teeth. And this will come up later. And this was the point where I thought, how could Ezra have survived, like, I don't know, like 40 years ago? Like, it's interesting. It's interesting seeing all of this because I'm not super familiar with more severe cases of autism spectrum disorder. But it's like, man, that's rough. That's a rough, like, card to be dealt. You got to go to a place and ask for the plastic utensils. But go on. This is where.
Yes. So at this point, Rose talks to the police, and so there's a cop there, and there's somebody from CPS there, and I'm trying to remember like who was whom in the discussion, but there's a disagreement between the CPS, child advocate or whatever those folks are called, and the person from the authorities about whether to put an Amber Alert out, but whomever thinks there shouldn't be an Amber Alert put out is overruled by the person who thinks there should be one put out, and so an Amber Alert is issued.
Yes. And this
nationwide.
This blew my mind because they're having this conversation with the cops, whatever they are, and because one of them didn't want to put out the Amber Alert, and then the other person says, she's like, I'm not comfortable with this. Like, it's been 4 days, so 4 days have passed, and like, yeah. Like, I don't know. Like, how long? I don't know. Like, how long would you wait in that situation? Because this is an Amber Alert situation. This is a kidnapping. Like,
well, I think it was 3 days. And I think she's been talking to him, right?
No, this was her going to them.
Like, no. I mean, she's been talking to Max.
Not really.
I think she knows that they're okay. Listen, at this point, I agree with you. Like, I would have involved the police by this point, but like, I think she knows they're okay. And I think that like the fact that he is autistic, I think suggests like, maybe the appropriateness of like a little bit more of a dovish attitude in terms of like involving the authorities, because like, that's going to be traumatic, And I think like realizing that that's going to be traumatic is part of what informs what's going to happen next in the movie. So the Amber Alert is put out.
It didn't work for me as well. Just because like this to me, like I get the tone that they're going for, which is like sappy, whatever, father son road trip drama. But like I don't know, man. Like this is how kidnappings happen in the real world. It's not like random strangers taking your kid in Target. It's like it's a parent. Like there's like a divorce situation or whatever. And like I don't know, like how long does your kid need to be like taken somewhere you don't know, like away from school, away from his routine? He obviously has like very special needs, and like I don't know, like I think if you're Rose Byrne, I think in the real world anyone would be like freaking the fuck out, like just screaming it on their voice into their voicemails to this guy, like where is my fucking son, like like
we are obviously going to get into like the thesis of this movie versus like I think like basic objective fucking reality about like the way the world works. But like, listen, I agree with you. This movie's fucking stupid, but like I think that like her behavior is not totally nonsensical to me. Like I think that I can justify it. I think that where it falls apart for me is that like the perspective of the creative folks involved seems to be that she is right. Like, these characters will be vindicated at the end of the film for their bad decisions. And like that is what about it like rings very fucking stupid for me. Not like the fact that these decisions are made. People make weird decisions emotionally all the time. That's like the most banal thing about human existence.
Like, you know, Max is a loving parent, but he's also like a very volatile guy. Like he punched a fucking doctor like 4 days ago. Like I don't know. Like just like again, maybe you got to go to the cop. Hey, my violent ex. You know, he was just in jail 4 days ago. Stole my kid.
and importantly, he was in jail for violence.
Yeah, for literal violence.
He wasn't in jail for something that wasn't violent.
Right. Okay, so sorry. So go on.
Okay, so they're with Nikki, whatever. And so now that this has happened with the authorities and the Amber Alert has been issued, Rose Byrne is like, oh, this isn't good. Like, really don't want the authorities to find them. You know, like that's not going to be good for anybody involved. And so she enlists Stan Robert De Niro, to help her with the situation. And so the way that Stan offers to help her is that when his shift ends at the doorman of whatever like ritzy hotel or apartment building or whatever he works at, you know, he's gonna drive with her to find them because he knows where they are. By this point, Stan has spoken with Max. He knows that he's at Rainn Wilson's house in, I think, Michigan, right? And so he's gonna take her there. So they start on a road trip together. And so now we've got kind of two parallel narratives, right?
Yes.
And like this, I kind of like, you know, this is something, you know, to acknowledge, you know, one of the things that I think is really nice about the way that Robert De Niro is used in this film. The best parts of his performance are in the back half of the film, right? So like this is the best part of Robert De Niro's arc. And I think this whole portion of it is the part of the movie that works the best for me. So the movie really becomes these two parallel narratives of like Max and Ezra working through their relationship and like Max trying to be a better father and like trying to help Ezra to understand that like even though he's like not a very good dad, he is trying, which is I think like something that works in a story but is like actually like really fucked up in real life because like Ezra's like 10 or whatever.
Yeah,
but like it works in the story, right? But then at the same time, you've got Robert De Niro and Rose Byrne are driving together and like they're unpacking some of the ways in which like he was a disappointing father. And like what underpinned that. And like narratively, this works for me. Like this is like, it's one of the only things in the film I think that works for me. And I think that Robert De Niro is great in these scenes.
Yes.
He monologues really well. He makes great faces. What did you think about this part of the film?
I agree with you, but again, you know, to reiterate, he's only in the entire film for 9 minutes, so these are short scenes. Like they're parallel narratives, and I think that does work. But you know what's going on between Stan and Rose Byrne or whatever, you know, is so much smaller than what Max and Ezra are doing, who at this point they have left Rainn Wilson's farm to head to LA for Kimmel, and so they're continuing that road trip. So De Niro's en route to Rainn Wilson's farm, and you know they've already left. So it worked for me. It worked well enough. You know, it worked well enough is what I'll say. I also want. Yeah. Are you going to mention the other stand-up set, or do you want me to talk about that here too?
Oh, go ahead. You can talk about the stand-up sets.
Stand-up stuff stood out to me because again, are you a fan of stand-up? Do you listen to stand-up ever?
I mean, not as much as you do, but like I like it. I think I know when it's good. It's not in this movie.
No.
Like
I feel like that's such a problem in movies, you know?
So much, but especially in this one.
Yeah, so what Max does here, he does another stand-up set at some comedy club along, you know, on the way to LA, which I thought was interesting. I guess he just had time to spare on his way to LA. Like he just had
this is one
time.
of the dumbest fucking things in the movie, I think.
Yeah, honestly. It felt a little contrived. So he does a set and Ezra's hanging out.
And like,
at the
wouldn't
bar.
it occur to him that maybe the authorities are after him? Like, wouldn't he want to like be as inconspicuous?
Right. He's like out with his kid.
I think he's kind of an asshole, but like the way he is depicted in the movie is as like a pretty smart guy. Yeah. Like he's not stupid. It's like a really stupid thing to do. This blew me away. Like,
he really, even though he's been on the road for days at this point, does not seem to understand like the weight of his actions. He never like he does not want to think about like the multiple felonies he's like committed. And he does this set. And afterwards, you know, some woman at the bar tells him like, hey, I don't think your kid should be out this late. And Max gets upset. And then the woman's husband like intervenes, and then Max gets into a fight with him. And then we cut to them, Max and Ezra driving away, and Ezra's like, they were the owners. And again, I'm just thinking about, like, I wrote in my notes, Max is definitely going to prison for a while because he's just violently assaulted multiple people at this point, in addition to the parental abduction. Like, it's nuts. And I'm like, this is who we're rooting for?
A lot of like interstate, like, crimes being committed.
Yeah. Right. Like, I don't know. Like, I obviously Ezra was going through some stuff at home, but like, I think that was probably the right path for him. But anyways, let's continue.
Yeah. So this is all happening. You know, they're on their way to LA, and they will stop one more place. I can't remember exactly what it is, but we'll talk about that. Max and Ezra will. But Rose Byrne and Robert De Niro make it to Rainn Wilson's house.
Yeah.
I don't really remember what happens in the scene other than that Robert De Niro gets his pot back, his pan, which is like kind of like a running joke in the movie. This made me chuckle, which is the hardest anything in the movie made me laugh. the visual comedy of him having the pan. Yeah, the visual comedy of him having the pan when he got in the car at the end of that section, it made me like chuckle quietly to myself, and that was the funniest thing in the movie by far, which was like amazing.
That was an all right moment. The only thing I mentioned, noted in that section, was that Jen, or whatever Rose Byrne's name is, when they're interrogating Rainn Wilson, she threatens him with a knife, and I was like, man, no wonder they were a match way back when. Right. This is a very violent
MFEO
couple.
Baby. Yep.
It's just like, okay, like I don't want the feds getting to Max, so I'm going to threaten this guy with a knife instead. It's like an innocent bystander who like let them sleep over, you know, one night. But anyway,
I mean, it worked. He told him, right?
That's true. Listen, I think it's very effective.
So she threatens him with a knife. He spills the beans that they're going to LA. Oh, hey, I want to mention something about the earlier scene that we didn't bring up. So you mentioned that he has the sensory issues with the metal tines of the fork. I think it's important to mention that, like, they make a deal with Ezra, like Rainn Wilson and, Max and the Senegalese lady, that he just has to try it once and then they'll all eat with their hands. And, like, you know, I don't know. The fact that works is interesting. It's an interesting part of, like, I think the narrative choices that this film makes and like what the vantage point of its kind of creative decision makers are.
It was a really sappy moment. I did not care for it.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack here. We're almost to the end of the movie. It's almost over.
Thank God.
So Rose Byrne and Robert De Niro, they're on their way to LA. And Max and Ezra stop at I don't remember geographically diner. Where this was supposed to be, but like somewhere between Michigan and Southern California. They stop at this lady's house who is seemingly like an old flame of Max, and like, you know, it's revealed in throwaway lines throughout this portion of the film. I mean, as somebody who's known since he was a kid, they reference experiences they had together in the 6th grade. So really, really old, close friend of his. And so in this scene, this whole part is like so weird. So like Ezra's there, and like, you know, he gets to like go out and like play with these other kids, and like Max's friend's daughter is like a nice girl who seems like really sensitive to Ezra's unique needs that he has, and you know, the issues related to his autism spectrum disorder. But then there's these other kids who are there too, and like one of the kids is like kind of an asshole bully, and like it sort of seems in like the earliest part of this section that there's going to be some conflict about that, but there isn't. He's just like an asshole at the beginning, and then nothing ever comes of it. Like everybody gets along fine.
Okay.
I thought that was like really strange narratively. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, please. Yep.
So before I get into this whole fucking Nebraska farm section, which it was
Nebraska. That's where it was. Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
I think you skipped over one of the most pivotal moments of the film. So we're really like doing this in a usual suspects kind of way today. There's this scene where Max and Ezra are driving in the middle of the night in the woods for some reason.
Oh, this happened before this. Sorry, I was remembering this as having been after.
Christ.
Okay, this is one of the most important parts of the movie.
You need to take notes. And for whatever reason, Ezra, they get like I don't know, they like get a flat tire or something happens.
No, I know why they're in the woods. It's because he knows about the Amber Alert.
Oh, right.
This is after they've been in the coffee shop and they've seen that their faces are on the news.
Caught. They were
so now he's
caught.
going into hiding. Like, yeah.
So Ezra, they get into like a fight or whatever. Ezra gets out of the car in the middle of this dark abandoned woods and just runs off into the woods. And I wrote, maybe Max shouldn't have kidnapped his kid. It does not seem like it's going well. And there is this big climactic conversation between father and son. And I wrote a quote here, which I normally don't do, but I wrote a quote here. Very emotional, powerful scene. You know, they're both, you know, so heightened emotionally. And at one point, Ezra yells at Max. He yells, "I'm not your," you know, because Max is like, "Oh, you're my buddy. You're my superhero. Blah blah blah. I'm Bobby Cannavale." And Ezra responds, "I'm not your buddy. I'm your son, and you're my dad." And I just groaned. It's just like, yeah, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, but that's like, you know, probably the most reasonable line in the entire movie. So
yeah, I mean, listen,
I agree.
It's just one of those movies, and we'll get to it more in the ratings. But then, yes, afterwards, they go to Nebraska to this idyllic farm where Vera Farmiga lives, and with her daughter and dog, and you know, it's a beautiful day, and they're running around and they're playing with other kids and eating multiple pints of Ben and Jerry's ice cream, and I was just thinking. Yeah, exactly. I was like, man, these people must have like good money. Gee, hey, every kid gets their own pint of Ben and Jerry's. You kidding me?
Right, it's like $6 a pint. Like,
right, they're just like the girl is offering like multiple options. I was like, I don't even do that. Like, I have money. It's fucking crazy. And I thought this was fantastic. My favorite part of the movie. This happens during this section. Ezra Bane posts. Did you?
Oh,
remember
that was
this?
really good. Yep, I really like this part. Yeah, but she's like, what did she say? Like, Bane is like my like inspiration or something. Like, what's her exact line?
I don't know. Like, he's hanging out with Vera Farmiga's kid and like her friends, and they're like out in a field, like eating the ice cream or whatever. And Ezra does the classic.
No one cared who I was till I put on the mask.
And one of the kids calls him a freak, but then they seem to move past it pretty quickly. I just thought it was great that he was Bane posting.
Yeah, that's the part I'm talking about. I forgot that was the Bane part, but like, I feel like he says he's a freak and it's so mean. Like, it's not nice. He's bullying him.
No, I agree. It was like instant.
It suggests that there's going to be like some kind of conflict, and then there is.
No, I agree. There was no escalation. He was like talked down from it pretty quickly.
It's so weird, like really weird creative choice. It makes me think that maybe they changed that. They changed that in post. Like, maybe they actually had to cut like 10 minutes or something.
Here's my impression of Ezra as Bane.
Okay.
No one cared who I was till I was kidnapped by my father.
Oh, that's good.
That's pretty good,
I like
right?
that. Yeah, that's funnier than the stand-up in this movie.
Yeah, there you go. I should have been hired to punch up the script.
You get that film, dude, on like a shitty like cell phone by Whoopi Goldberg. You're gonna be on Kibble next week. As long as you can drive yourself to LA, he will not pay. He's
not going to pay the $350, man. They're on a tight ship over there on CBS or whatever network. I think it's ABC actually.
Oh, that's right. And he that's the other thing too, is like he lives in Hoboken. Right. So like
he could fly to Newark.
EWR would be his airport. Like it would be a cheap
major
flight.
hub. Yes, absolutely.
Right. Like,
it's very funny. Listen, I want you on my show. I'm not going to pay.
So a lot of stuff happens in this scene, or in this whole section, and like I think that this is where a lot of the dumbest stuff in the film happens.
It's like a third of the film. It is like the third act of the film.
Yeah, but like I don't think the specifics of what happens matters. Essentially, like the things that happen vindicate Max's like entire like ideological thrust. Right, like
and I
Ezra makes eye contact with a horse, and like suddenly his autism is gone. Like it's like, oh my god, it's so stupid. And
I was just about to ask.
Honestly,
from
my perspective,
I felt the exact same way. I thought this was dumb as fuck because you're right. All it takes is spending like 1 hour on a Nebraska farm to like, just like for Max or for Ezra to just like overcome his autism. Like it just goes away because he wants it to go away. Because you're right, he like has this powerful moment where he bonds with a horse and like looks it in the eyes. First of all, people are not horses. That shit's different. I could look a horse in the eyes all fucking day. I don't care.
Oh, easy.
If he looks at me wrong, I'm turning him into glue. So that is not real. And then second,
it's about the power dynamic. Like
the other thing he does is when they're eating their pints of Ben and Jerry's ice cream, he's hesitant to try it because they only have metal spoons. But, the girl, I think her name's Ruby, encourages him, and then he's just able to do it. And I was just thinking to myself, like, okay, was this mind over matter and he doesn't feel it? Or is he just like in agony the entire time he's eating that, Stephen Colbert's Americone dream? It's just
and
like,
he also hugs
so
her
dumb. He also
at the end
hugs
of the
her.
segment.
Yeah. He's just like, it's completely
so,
overcome.
For me, this is so
a fantasy
belittling.
movie. Yeah.
This is so belittling to the like earnest struggles that I think folks with autism experience with their like actual like psychological and neurological issues that they have. It's like, it's so contrived and so stupid.
I completely
And I think
agree.
it also like, it really diminishes the nobility of like researchers and like physicians and nurses and like other like, like medical professionals who like do science and like clinical work to like actually try to like help these folks to like lead better, fuller like lives that are like more, just cohesive with like the expectations of society and like, create less friction with the world. And like,
and
I just think it's so fucking stupid. Like I completely, it's so bad.
I agree 100%. And I also thought, what's the actionable here? Like, are they all going to fucking move to Nebraska? To the middle of nowhere, like, because this just magically cures Ezra's issues. Like I thought it was so dumb, this whole section. It was really losing me at this point.
I think this is like such a, I just want to wind down the movie really quick because I think this is what we're really going to talk about, right? Like this is what I want to talk about the movie. So this all happens like, like she helps him like get away in like another car because like a cop comes because like he's like gotten a tip that like they're there or whatever. And so then they leave. And one other thing happens that's important. So Stan, like, I don't understand how this happened. Like I got the impression maybe this was the restaurant that Stan worked in.
This is really fucking stupid.
Right. So like somehow, I don't even think it matters how, but somehow Stan and Rose Byrne stop to get gas.
Yeah.
And Stan looks over at the window of a diner that is next to the gas station they're getting gas at and sees that Max and Ezra are eating in there.
Yes.
It's insane.
Yes. First of all, it's pure coincidence that they happen to be at the same place at the same time. Second of all, the diner is not that close to the gas pumps. It seems like it's like 100 feet away. And Robert De
Reflection
Niro,
in the window.
Right. Robert De Niro,
he's
who's
an
like
old man.
86 years old, is able to see all the way down there and immediately clock his son and grandson. And I just thought like this is how we're reaching this point. This is what they came up with. But yes, they discover or De Niro discovers Max and Ezra.
So he walks over to the diner. Somehow he gets away from Rose Byrne.
Yeah.
And he
I
goes
wonder how
in
he sold that to, hey, I'm just going to walk into this diner. No reason.
Hey, I'm just going to walk into this diner. Don't follow me. No big deal. So he walks into the diner and he makes eye contact with Max. And Max excuses himself from Ezra in a way that I think was also like a little bit unbelievable. He's like, oh, sorry, kid. I got to go wash my hands. And so he gets up. He goes over to talk to his dad, and they have a heart-to-heart. Another great Robert De Niro scene. Like his performance in the scene is great.
Yeah, he was good.
And for what it's worth, I love Bobby Cannavale as well. So I like this scene. This was a good scene in the film. If you take it independently from all the stupid shit that like was the context for it ever happening, this was like one of my favorite parts. And so they have this heart-to-heart, and Stan is basically like, hey, like I was a really bad dad because I had anger issues and, your mom left me and I never really told you that like she wasn't bad. The reason why she left me was because I was a piece of shit. And like, you are trying to confront like your emotions and like your feelings about Ezra and about your role as a father and about your guys' relationship head on in a way that I never had the strength to address my shit with you, when I was raising you. Like I was a bad dad and it seems like you're doing a better job than me. So like, good on you, kid. Like, and then he leaves. That's the end of the scene.
This scene, it kind of eroded.
I can't even explain it without laughing. It's so silly.
This scene kind of eroded my sympathy for De Niro's character because apparently, like we learn over the course of this film that like, it seems like Max, who is a middle-aged man, who's like in his 50s, he seems to genuinely believe that his mom like left him and Robert De Niro like because he was a bad kid. or like something. Like he thinks it's his fault. He seems to have carried this belief like into like adulthood, and it takes up until this moment for Robert De Niro to go, "Oh no, your mom left because she didn't like me because I was a huge prick." And it's like, dude, like I get it's tough or whatever, but like that never came up ever. Like over the last
really
like
good.
35 years that it's just been the two of them. Like
Yep.
Max was never like, oh, dad, like, why did mom leave? Was it because I'm such a bad kid or whatever?
Because I was a piece of shit.
And Robert De Niro's just like, oh yeah, it must have been, son, must have been. I'm going to go be a doorman now. Like, it was just so fucking stupid. But we had to have that big emotional moment.
This reminded me of something that I think was important that we acknowledge. Another like really weird moment in the movie. This is from the scene of them in the woods. I'm surprised you didn't mention this. So back in the woods, like we're going back like 15 or 20 minutes now. We'll fix this in post. You can edit this in.
I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I know that's the joke. You're obviously not going to do that. So when Max finds Ezra after he's run away from the car, when they have like, their little altercation in the woods, Max gets like really mad, but he gets really mad, but he like doesn't have an outburst, like a physical outburst.
Right.
And so then later he calls his dad. He calls Stan after he's gotten Ezra to go to sleep in the car. And he's like, Dad, I almost hit Ezra. I almost hit him. And Robert De Niro's like, you could never hit him. Chain yourself to a tree, chop your arm off, like whatever you got to do. You could never hit your kid, in a way that I think really strongly implies that Robert De Niro did hit Max.
Yeah, I got the same thing.
And I just think this whole father-son dynamic is like so weird. Like it's just like, what is this movie trying to say?
Well, I agree, and I had a similar thought. Like where during that scene, that conversation, I thought like, what does this film have to say about anything? Because they have this like really difficult conversation, and Max is saying like I almost hit Ezra. I was whatever, and like. All Robert De Niro has to say is like, oh, you never do that. You never cross that line. Chain yourself up if you have to. I was like, that's it. That's what this movie's advice is. Like that's like what these characters have to offer. That's the profound insight that this fucking film is going to like provide us. Oh, you just don't do it. Just don't hit your kid. It's like, okay, thanks, Robert De Niro.
All right, let's try to wrap this up as quickly as we can. There's really nothing else of any importance to say. So that all happens, whatever. Max and Ezra get to LA. They like walk the like Hollywood Walk of Fame or whatever.
They didn't get reimbursed for gas.
Yeah. Ezra does impressions of the people whose stars they walk over on the Walk of Fame. And then they do Kimmel. And so he's starting to do his stand-up set for Kimmel.
He's doing the sound check.
And he's doing the sound check, whatever. It doesn't fucking matter. And Rose Byrne and Robert De Niro walk in at the same time as some FBI agents walk in.
Incredible
and
timing.
The FBI agents, it's so funny. It's so contrived. Like that this would all happen at the same time. Like all three of these things. It's absurd. And so the FBI folks come in. They're like, hey, you're under arrest totally reasonably. And Rose Byrne is like, no, don't arrest him. Like, I'm here now. I'm Ezra's mother or whatever. And so it all ends up being like totally fine, essentially. Like Rose Byrne is able to like talk the cops off. They do like eventually like, tackle Bobby Cannavale down to the ground and arrest him, but like whatever. And so the scene ends, and then we get like a time jump, presumably to like a month or two in the future, and everyone is happy. Everybody's doing great. Ezra is in a school for kids with special needs. It seems like he's like thriving socially relatively to the way he was when we saw him at the start of the film. Bobby Cannavale, he's like under house arrest. He's wearing one of those like ankle tracker things that you wear when you're under house arrest, but like seems like it's not super restrictive because he is out of his house, doing something with Ezra. And everybody's good. Like everybody's getting along, like everybody's happier than they were before. And like that's the end of it. Happy ending. This was the right thing. Everyone's better for it. What do you think about that? How's that hit for you?
Did you see the mid-credits scene?
Oh yeah, I don't even want to talk about it. It's so fucking stupid.
It was just a really bad like Kimmel gag. I just thought it was a weird way to end the film.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why he was willing to do that. Like,
yeah, really bizarre. I guess Kimmel wanted his 3 minutes of screen time or whatever. But yes, that is the end of the film. I think we should go straight into ratings. What did you think? I think you've been pretty clear about what you thought, but what did you think about Ezra?
Listen, so I have more that I want to say about this, and if you don't want to say more, that's fine. So here's my issue with this film, right? Mm-hmm. I think that this is part of a very kind of anti-intellectual strain of thought that we have in America right now, right? And it's like, listen, I don't want to get too political or anything, but we got our RFK getting appointed to run HHS, right? And he is this is the RFK school of thought, right? It's
is that where Ezra's going to school now?
Right. You don't need science. You don't need medication. We should empower parents to, on an individual case-by-case basis, make all the decisions for what's right to do with their children. And actually a lot of the issues that kids have, kids with autism, it's actually because of vaccines and because they live in areas with too high population density. If we just get the kids off the
Don't
drugs,
medicate them.
If we get them out onto a farm to make eye contact with a horse,
exactly.
If you just make eye contact with a horse for 15 or 20 seconds, your autism will be cured. And fuck the doctors, fuck the psychiatrists, fuck all the research that's been done. And, your kid's not crazy, so they shouldn't take antipsychotic medication. And I find so let me talk about my feelings as a parent. I understand now that I have a child why people are taken in by these kinds of narratives and these ways of thinking. Because as a parent, you really want to believe my relationship with my kid is special. I actually would know what was best for them. And I shouldn't have to listen to the doctors. And it's no, you're wrong. You actually should listen to the doctors. And as a parent, the responsible thing to do when these kinds of things happen is to ignore that nagging feeling that you have that what's better, that your kid is special, your relationship with your kid is special. You and me were texting about this a little bit earlier. I think that it is reasonable to think that there is a small subset of the population of kids with autism spectrum disorder who actually would specifically benefit from this very unique, very stupid, experience that these characters have all had in this movie. Yeah. But not enough for it to be what anybody should do. How could you ever possibly know that that your kid would be one of the 1% of people who this would be the right thing for? That seems to be the thesis of the filmmakers, that this is better than being on the antipsychotic medication. It's what the fuck is wrong with you people? It's absurd.
I think the perspective of the filmmakers was pretty bizarre here, and so overall, and we want to rate this on our 5-star scale. So, do you want to give your rating now, or do you want me to say my piece?
No, go ahead, say your piece. I want to hear it. Yeah.
So I agree with everything you said, but when I was watching the film, obviously I was coming at it from a different perspective, and for me, I didn't like it. Just because of its tone. It's so sappy.
Yeah, you hate that kind of shit way more than I do.
It felt so dated to me. It came out last year, came out in 2023. And I didn't like the tone of it. I didn't like what it seemed to be saying or implying. I thought was really dumb. I didn't like all of those contrived father-son moments. Oh, you're my superhero. No, you're my dad. All that crap to me. It's just it felt so not even Oscar baity, because the film didn't reach that level to where it'd be in that sort of conversation, but it seemed like it was trying very hard to be that sort of thing. And it just rubbed me the wrong way. This sort of narrative where it's up to this poor 10-year-old kid to basically help his middle-aged father, not be such a fucking prick. I don't know. It's just narratives like that. Where the kid is a prop for this adult male to find himself. It's that's not. I was not feeling that.
Just to add one thing, just to put a slightly broader, I think more broadly applicable frame around the observation you just made. I think we see this in a lot of stories about people with autism, especially kids, right? And this movie is really guilty of that. It's not actually about the experience of having autism. It's about the experience of being someone who has a connection or an investment in somebody with autism. It's very dehumanizing. It tokenizes the character's experience in a way that is it's kind of offensive, honestly. Like it's really not good.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's bring it over to our ratings. What would you give it out of 5 stars?
I got to give it 2.5. I certainly liked it more than, I certainly liked it more than I liked Greetings. I thought that it was really weird how the stand-up wasn't funny. But for me, I found the general narrative much more compelling than I found the first film. I thought all the performances were excellent. I thought the music was totally fine. It was really forgettable. The cinematography was totally fine. It was really forgettable. I thought Robert De Niro was great in it. And overall, I had a nice time watching it. It was not a good movie, but I'm happy I watched it. I did not feel that way about Greetings. I watched Greetings and I was like, I never needed to watch that movie. It's fine.
Yeah. So 2.5 for you. That's interesting. I have been going back and forth between a 2 and a 2.5. I originally gave it a 2.5 right after I finished it, but this whole conversation kind of makes me like it less. and I think I'm going to land on a 2.5. For me, when I rate like 2.5, it's mixed. It's right in the middle. I could like it or not like it at a 2.5. And I think this is more of a 2.5 that I don't really like, but it's so, yeah, it goes down smooth. It's so generic and simple and straightforward. It's an hour and a half, road trip, father-son dramedy. Yep. Like, yeah, it hits the beats that you look for in that sort of movie, if that's your sort of thing. And like, to me, like, yeah, in that sense, I found it so inoffensive. I was like, I don't feel strongly enough about it to like really give it a low rating, like to really feel passionately about it. It was just like kind of goofy and sappy and it was fine. I will say I thought it was very well acted. All the performances were very good.
Oh yeah,
I just
agreed.
wish
They're great.
I wish it was in service of something like better. But that kind of saved it. It was great watching all the lead performances. The kid, listen, I don't remember his name. He was good. De Niro was good for the 9 minutes he was in it. Bobby Cannavale is a great actor. So I was happy to like spend time with those people. But yeah, overall, pretty much an kind of movie, 2.5.
Yeah, I think it's pretty bad. Like in terms of like the story and like especially in terms of like, like it's like literary qualities, like what it's trying to say. I think that the worst things about it technically are inoffensive, and the best things about it technically, the performances are like legitimately quite good. So it's a real mixed bag. Like it's not a terrible movie by any means, but like it is deeply flawed. It is not good.
Yeah, I agree. I mean that's Ezra.
Yeah, there you go. That's Ezra.
I guess we should move into our next section. Is there anything that you would like to recommend instead of or in addition to Ezra?
No, it didn't make me think of anything, honestly.
Oh, really? You're not going to bring one. You're not going to bring one this week?
No, I didn't even think to do one, to be honest.
Oh, that's
because
like
I was so uninspired as I finished it.
Incredible. Okay, so Mike's passing this week on one of the 4 sections of our podcast. Listen, my recommendation is completely disconnected from this film. So don't feel like you have to be beholden to Ezra. I'll tell you, I went on a whole thought process here because I thought, okay, first, are there any other father-son, dramedies that I could think of that I'd recommend? And there were none that I could think of. So then I thought, okay, road trip comedies, none that I'd really want to recommend at this moment in time. Then I thought, okay, what about films that released in 2023? So I looked at my Letterboxd. I looked at all the films that like released in 2023 that I watched. And one of them was not even a movie. It was a limited series called Boiling Point, which is a sequel to a 2021 film called Boiling Point. And that's what I'm going to recommend. Instead of Ezra, I'm going to recommend the 2021 British drama film Boiling Point, directed by Philip Baratini. And basically, I love this movie. You've seen this, so I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but for me, it was a 5-star film that I saw early in 2024. It's a one-take film, so it's all in one long, unbroken take, basically about an evening at a popular upscale London restaurant. And so it's basically just following the staff throughout the course of the dinner shift and just like seeing everything that unfolds. I really loved it. I loved its presentation. It's one of the most tense films I've ever seen. It's up there with films like Uncut Gems. And I really loved, normally I don't really care about long unbroken takes. Like people always freak out when like a TV show does it, like Daredevil or whatever. And like, it's fine. But this, I thought it actually helped serve what the film was trying to do, like build that atmosphere, build that tension, because we never break away from what's happening happening like in the moment in the restaurant. And I thought it was really cool that it was unfolding in real time. So I thought it was a really fantastic film. I loved watching it. If you're into tense films like Uncut Gems, this isn't as funny as that, but that's what I'm going to recommend instead of Ezra if you want to kill an hour and a half.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation. I didn't realize that we could be so I don't know what the word is, indirect with the ways that we tie these recommendations together. So I like that. I think that's a really funny recommendation. So it's so disconnected. I can make a slightly more connected recommendation, I think.
Okay.
So if you want to pick another 2023 Oscar baity film that I did not love, but that I actually think was a good movie, that I think has some, I think, tonal overlap with this movie, I would recommend American Fiction.
Wow.
American Fiction was near the bottom of my my Oscar ranking for 2023, but it's a good movie, and this is not. So if you want to watch a movie that I agree that I also didn't love, that I think has some questionable effectiveness as it relates to like theme and like vantage point on the part of the creative folks, you can watch American Fiction. It's got a lot more to say than this movie, and it's a lot more fun. It'll actually make you laugh. Sterling K. Brown is incredible. It's actually a good movie. So there you go.
Okay, so now it is time for the real final section of this pod, in which we roll again to see which film we're watching next. We're doing this in random order. So it's my turn to roll this week. I have the dice ready. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready, baby.
Do you have the list?
When you say the number, do you want me to look for what it is and say it, or do you want to do that?
I can say it. It's fine. I'm going to roll right now. And I rolled 25. Okay, 25. That is The Untouchables from 1987. Ooh. That's exciting. That's supposed to be a good film.
Another Brian De Palma.
Neither of us have seen it before.
All right.
How long is it? 1987 American crime film directed by Brian De Palma, set in Chicago in 1930. The film follows Elliot Ness as he forms the Untouchables team to bring Al Capone to justice during Prohibition. I'm excited. I'm very excited.
And he plays Al Capone, and it is an hour and 15 minutes.
Incredible.
Or an hour and 59 minutes. Sorry, but oh my gosh, this is exciting.
Man. Okay, look at that.
I'm pumped about this. Yeah.
Episode 3, The Untouchables, coming at you in a week. Now it's time to wrap it up. Be sure to follow us on Letterboxd. I'm Mike back. What am I? I'm Mike back at you. He's Mike the Fab. Don't get it twisted. And be sure to email us at ourherodeniro@gmail.com with any feedback, notes, questions, comments. We'll be sure to check them out and possibly read them on the pod. That's all from me. What about you? Anything else to say?
That's all from me. It was a great time. Great discussion. Glad we were here.
Yeah, another one in the books. All right, that is it. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.